Declan Doyle has left the Bears. He's taken the offensive coordinator position in Baltimore. Hits keep coming. Let's talk about it. The CHGO Bears Emergency Podcast starts right now. All right, Declan Doyle out the door. This was not the plan for this Friday afternoon, as we had all moved on to family time, but here we are, at least I had. But Gregory P. Allen Braggs is here. Declan Doyle is in Baltimore. Ben Johnson, Ryan Poles have some work to do. Ian Cunningham out the door yesterday. Declan today. Eric Bieniemy last week. Adam Jahns is joining as well. I think we can bring him in right now.
Yep. Shout out to our friends over at Xfinity for this emergency podcast. What's up, Johnsy?
Xfinity Pod brought to us by our friends at Xfinity. 5 years. Get yourself involved in the same Wi-Fi for the next 5 years. John's in his car. Hey, we all got to get involved here when Declan leaves. All right, so hey, John Z, let's just get everyone's thoughts in here. Adam, go lead us off here. Declan, his impact and what this really means for the Bears coaching staff come 2026. And John's is frozen.
He was a bit selfish. Am I frozen?
You're okay. You're okay. Go for it.
How about now? Can you hear me now? My most.
Let's have you reconnect. Yeah. You pop out. You reconnect. Greg, that means that you get to take the first nauseating Declan Doyle out the door thoughts. This one, I think this one hurts. But go ahead. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think my initial reaction is look how quickly the league is pulling from the Ben Johnson tree, right?
Yep.
And so while this is it's not good to lose a talented coach like Declan Doyle. Anybody that followed Declan throughout this year knew that he's definitely somebody that's an up and comer. And obviously, I think the Ravens have made a really good move in bringing him in. It might be a little early. Does he have enough experience? Certainly, there'll be question marks. But they're taking a big swing on a young coach that's been around guys like Sean Payton and Ben Johnson. And for the Bears, I think that it shows a roadmap to other coaches that want to make the climb in this league. In 1 year, Declan Doyle went from a offensive coordinator that didn't call plays to now calling plays for Lamar Jackson. So if I'm somebody that's trying to climb the ranks in the NFL, I'm looking to join Ben Johnson's staff with the opportunity, whether I'm calling plays or not. There's a roadmap already proven that I can come to Chicago and climb the ladder in the NFL.
Well, and you just touched on the positive. Like, this is going to be a sought-after job to get to work with Ben, the great offensive mind, and that's an excellent spin forward. John Z, let's try you one more time in your car. Hopefully, the internet hopefully Xfinity will find its way into your vehicle right now. What are your thoughts here, Declan, going to Baltimore?
My most initial reaction was a bit selfish because I enjoyed talking to him about football. There's certain coaches that you start to get to know and that you talk to where you know they're going to go on to bigger and better things beyond talking to me about the Chicago Bears quarterbacks room. And you know Declan Doyle was bound for this, that these opportunities would come sooner rather than later. Maybe I thought it would be a year away from now, but here we are, a year after the Bears offense enter the conversation in the top 10 in a lot of different categories, top 5 in explosive plays. So if you're looking to tap into this Ben Johnson system, here is Declan Doyle, who has learned from Ben Johnson for a full year as his right-hand man.
Yeah, and here look, let's just give, first of all, credit to Ben at the start of this, because it was his first year staff. A lot of people make mistakes when they're putting together a staff for the first time. In Ben's staff, he's gone after a veteran in Eric Bieniemy, who got swooped up by Kansas City, brought him back, and he went up up and comer, tight ends coach, plucked him out of Denver, not even 30 years old, made him his, offensive coordinator, but basically his assistant behind the scenes. And 1 year doing that job, the Baltimore Ravens, with a defensive head coach in Barry Minter, said, first timer, replacing John Harbaugh. A lot of pressure in Baltimore. Who am I reaching out to? Well, let me go get this young gun in Chicago who's done it for 1 year and wasn't even calling plays, which is, I saw in the comments, somebody's asking, why was he allowed to leave? Well, this is a promotion for Declan. He's going to call plays in Baltimore. They're giving him the keys of the car are being given to him. So, it is a credit to Ben that he's able to identify, which I think, and he said himself that I am here to help these guys. And so that should be appealing to anybody out there that, this dude is not going to stand in my way. And by the way, I'm going to learn a ton, and I should be able to get the next job and make the next amount of money, all the things. So those are positives. At the same time, everybody on that team, 5-star coaching staff. You heard that all over the place. So you're losing some stars off of that 5-star coaching staff, and throw Ian Cunningham in there a drop too. So, there's some work for Ryan Poles too as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's going to be work. I mean, they have a running backs coach, an offensive coordinator, and an assistant GM that they have to replace now. And so you just wonder how this is going to be navigated. But at the end of the day, the stability is Ben Johnson, Dennis Allen, and Ryan Poles. Those guys are not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. And how they fill these roles is certainly going to be something we got to pay attention to. But I think they've earned the trust over the last 12 months to show you that they're going to be able to take, coach from this coaching tree and continue to build it out. I also think from the other side of it, I think it is a big indictment on the Philadelphia Eagles. Declan Doyle passed up an opportunity to coach there. A lot of people thought, maybe he's just going to stay put in Chicago. Hey, nothing wrong with going over to try to coach the 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson. But as you mentioned, it's not like it's exactly sunshines and rainbows going on in Baltimore either. So there's a bit of a risk with either organization right now with how they're trying to navigate through things. But he chose the path of Lamar Jackson over, the still Super Bowl defending champion Philadelphia Eagles until they're dethroned here in a week or so. So I think that is an indictment on Philly with things that are going on there. I think Declan Doyle will do a good job in Baltimore. I guess from the Bears side of things, he's out of the NFC at least in the AFC. So there's that aspect of it too. And so, I think now to skip ahead, you're going to look at, who they could potentially replace him with, and maybe we'll get into that here in a little bit. But I don't really think that this is going to take too big of a hit on Caleb Williams. I don't think this is going to take too big of a hit on the Bears offense. I think Declan Doyle did a really good job, but I think what he did for the Bears is something Ben Johnson will be able to replace.
Well, and that part of it is a little bit, what exactly was Declan Doyle doing? Because in essence, he was making Ben Johnson's life easier for him, right? I mean, he needed somebody that was going to come in there, be very detail-oriented, help him just get everything basically in order each week. But he got a lot of high praise, and every time we talked, it was like, oh, well, this guy's on point. And then you heard, as you went through the Philadelphia part of the hiring cycle, people were saying, well, he's probably 1 year away from getting head coach interviews, which, when we're talking about that, we're saying, is this guy the next Sean McVay who's going to be a head coach in the NFL? He's 29 years old. He's going to be a head coach at 31. I mean, that is a super fast track. And, his personality is, he's not, if we're just comparing personality, Sean McVay, Declan Doyle, of just young guys, period, who are of that super dynamic. Declan obviously is a little more reserved. He's more of the accountant in the room, not the the showman out in front. But this is a guy that has just garnered a ton of respect. So I to your point, Greggy, I think they'll obviously this is not a. Ben's still going to be calling the plays. It's still Ben's offense. It wasn't like Ben was learning from Declan. This is a big-time difference than what's going on in Detroit when they lose their offensive coordinator, and Dan Campbell's left to sit there and look at a clipboard with his glasses on and look like he doesn't know what he's doing. That's not going to happen in Chicago. But it is, if you had to pick things that could happen this offseason, this would not have been one of them.
Yeah, Kevin Fishbane in the chat asking, question for Braggs, what's a bigger loss, Declan Doyle or the 2 third-round picks the Bears aren't getting? Well, Fish Face, you made fun of me last week about my concerns about Declan Doyle leaving, and now here he is heading over to coach the 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson. So my concerns were warranted, as are my concerns of other teams getting third-round picks, but not the Bears. But I digress.
Yeah.
Regardless, I think what you heard throughout the year, and you heard this from Ben Johnson as the year went on, how much ahead they were in terms of building a game plan for each week. And early in the season, it would take until Friday and Saturday even to have their game plan completely installed. Whereas by the end of the year, Ben said that they were so ahead of the game in installing their game plans because they knew what their identity was. They knew what they wanted to do. So I think some of the heavy lifting that this team had to go through in year one, I think now they've entered an offseason with an understanding of the pieces they have on this team, how they want to win, how they want to build a game plan for a season, but also week to week. And so now it's more of a, instead of more of a discovery is in terms of what you're doing as a coaching staff, more in terms now of a plug and play. This is what we need. This is what we do. These are the people that we think are best fitting to be able to suit these needs. So I think with that understanding through this first year, I think it's going to be easier for Ben Johnson to understand exactly who to fill that role. So that being said, I think some different names that are being thrown out there, Mark, Tanner Engstrand, sorry, I get a phone call here right now, but from the Jets, with everything they have going on, Tanner Engstrand, the offensive coordinator for the Jets, was fired. He has a connection to Ben Johnson in Detroit, was the passing game coordinator under Ben Johnson. You had John Morton, who is the fired offensive coordinator for Detroit. I think that you'll see people tying even his name. A lot of people in the chat calling out for Tanner. But I think another person that we've kind of touched on a couple times here on this show, but it hasn't really been widely reported, which has been kind of odd to me. But it has been reported that offensive coordinator of the Boston College Eagles, Will Lawing, has joined the Bears coaching staff, and he has a connection to Ben Johnson from UNC. Taylor Dahl from Windy City Gridiron was talking with Bill O'Brien about, his coaching prowess. He coached alongside Bill O'Brien in a couple different spots for a period of like 13 years, whether it was in the pros in New England or in college at Alabama, and has, experience at both different levels, even coaching on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball. And so from the way Bill O'Brien was explaining Will Lawing and his attention to detail, his willingness to adapt to players and relatability, I think he certainly could be an option as an offensive coordinator. There's David Shaw, is a assistant offensive coach that has been connected to the Bears a few times in the past. He's on the Detroit Lions coaching staff. Is that somebody that Ben Johnson considers? So I think those are some of the names you're going to hear of. If I had to guess who's going to be, my guess would be Will Lawing will take that role. And some people will be like, wow, like, how could you well, he's not calling plays, and just like Declan Doyle, who you're bringing into this spot, like, you need somebody to do the dirty work, as you were saying earlier, Carman. And so, like, this isn't like your normal offensive coordinator position in Chicago. Certainly a chance for you to climb the ladder, but you're basically coming in and doing the dirty work for Ben Johnson. You're not calling plays. So in my opinion, my guess would be that Will Long is the one that takes this job.
Right. I think that's the most logical play. It's almost like they were anticipating perhaps that, well, we know we're going to be losing some guys, and we could even be losing Declan. And you were the OC last year for Boston College. You have been a tight ends coach, which is at least somewhat similar to Ben's path, who's, literally coached everything. So, they sought him out knowing that they will find something for him to do. So that to me, that it seems like, the way Ben works. Let me just get ahead of this and bring this dude in because Declan is going to get a bunch of interviews. And if he leaves, I'll just be that far ahead of him because I don't, everybody's getting some downtime. I wouldn't be surprised if Ben Johnson's at Hallis Hall right now going through some level of tape of some game or looking ahead to the draft or whatever he's doing. I don't know how much time that guy takes off, but, the Will Long thing certainly makes sense. Tanner's an interesting name. 42 years old, available, has connections to Ben. That's a good name to throw in here. But end of the day,
well, and Tanner was considered a lot like Declan Doyle, like a bright young mind, right? The Jets took a swing on him. Everybody was trying to pull from the Detroit coaching tree last year and everything fell apart for the Jets. So now he's got to kind of do damage control in terms of his reputation and build himself back up the ladder. So, would he just want to be a part of the coaching staff in general? And that's where I think that's where the advantage is for Ben Johnson. I think there's a lot of coaches that will take lesser opportunities, whether that's OC not calling plays or offensive assistant coaches, passing game coordinator, whatever title you want to throw in there, just to be a part of this and work your way up the ladder as other coaches get an opportunity for advancement.
Right. And I mean, I'm seeing Press Taylor being named in the chat a ton here, and that's, listen, in-house, knows the deal. The thing that I assume that anybody who is on that staff has somewhat of the chops to want to be, Ben's right-hand guy. But I also think that seems like a job for somebody who has absolutely no life. That, there is no work-life balance there. You are in the grinder position of doing all the details that, are endless each week to make sure the offense is where it needs to be. Just bringing it back to, the actual room and Caleb specifically. Caleb spent a ton of time with Ben, getting to know Ben. You didn't hear a whole lot of it's Caleb, Ben, and Declan. But I'm sure Declan was involved in all of it. There's no way that you can just completely just throw Declan out in the rise that Caleb had in his second year. So again, not irreplaceable, but he was a part of, a huge upsurge this year. So I don't want to do one part of it like irreplaceable, but I also don't want to say like this is not at least some level of loss here, because it has to be, considering how far they came this year. You're talking about a team that was fourth in the NFL in rushing, was what were the seventh overall in yards. That the offense was, Caleb's throwing for 309 yards a game in the playoffs. Everything is on the upswing here, doing it in the snow. So I think the Bears owe a big thank you to Declan Doyle. I think Ben Johnson owes a big thank you to Declan Doyle for the impact that he had here in year one. And now you can go, well, I guess we could see the Ravens in the Super Bowl next year. That's fine. That would be an okay thing for everyone.
Yeah, no question. As we'll bring Steven into this, but they were fourth in the league in yards per game. They were third in the NFL in rushing yards per game. They were dynamic. I mean, if you look at Caleb Williams' numbers specifically, they were seventh in the NFL for a quarterback in yards for the season. 27 touchdowns, 6 in the NFL for Caleb Williams. Interceptions, obviously, 7, and then the big one, I think the big number everybody really focused on from year 1 to year 2, the sacks taken, 68 in his rookie year, down to 24 in his second year. But JT Barrett is a part of this conversation as the quarterback's coach. Ben Johnson certainly obviously gets the lion's share of the credit, but I do think Declan Doyle and we'll learn more about this as this goes on, and Jahns and Hogue have done their reporting, and I know Jahns has talked with Declan a few times in certain regards, and so I do think Declan, without speaking out of turn, was more in charge of mapping out a game plan, advanced scouting, and doing the dirty work, cutting film of how they're going to build out to play their next opponent, and some of the things to take some of the heavy lifting off of Ben Johnson. That's just my opinion from things that I've heard, but again, don't want to speak completely out of turn. Go ahead, Steven.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give a little bit of a different thought on this, and this isn't an indictment on Declan Doyle or anything like that. But Carm, you mentioned this briefly. I genuinely don't really know what it was that Declan Doyle's day-to-day responsibilities were, and until someone comes out and says it, I don't think we're ever going to know. Was he just a pencil pusher for Ben Johnson? Was he helping create plays? I'm not sure. I remember this time last year when we were hiring Declan Doyle, he was the number one question mark on this entire Bears coaching staff. We didn't really know what we were getting. I remember we called into DNVR and we asked them too, like, hey, what do we need to know about Declan Doyle? Why is he getting this job? And what we heard was he was a younger whiz kid, similar mind like Ben Johnson, wired similarly. But now he's leaving. I did think to myself, I wonder if Eric Bieniemy would have stayed if he knew this. Obviously now he takes you think he goes to Kansas City regardless?
100%, because he wouldn't have gotten to call plays here. And I think this job's a little bit unique. Like, I think you got to be built in not that Eric Bieniemy's not a super hard working dude, because he obviously is, but you're talking about a lot of dirty work with not a lot of glory. I don't think that would have been, I think EB likes being on the field and being involved that way. I don't see him doing this role.
And then another in-house candidate, you mentioned JT Barrett. What about Antoine Randall? Is there any possibility we see him become the Bears OC? Ben Johnson called this a 5-star coaching staff at his end-of-season press conference. So obviously he thinks of them very highly. Is there someone he thinks highly enough already in the organization that he would be willing to promote to OC right now?
Yeah, and so I don't think you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul as far as somebody like Antoine Randall. I'd be very surprised on that too. The Will Lawing thing makes the most sense to me. You want a young up and coming dude who wants to be hand in hand with Ben and just and have zero ego. Antoine Randall, that's another guy that absolutely thrives on the field, in the room, dealing one-on-one, coaching guys up. I don't think that's his role. I think this role is way more cerebral, not as much hands-on. I'm sure they're sitting down and with guys and breaking down tape and going through it and showing Caleb, Tyson, whoever, what's going on. But this is more, I think, just working hand in hand with the coach. So I'd be surprised on that one. It doesn't seem like a fit for somebody like Antoine, or rewinding back to EB.
I was going back and doing some research while you guys were talking, and because I remembered in the preseason that Ben Johnson let Declan Doyle and Al Harris call plays in the second half of a preseason game. I thought it was the last preseason game against the Chiefs, and I was going to dial up Carm because we all know how great of a comeback that was for the Bears in that Bears-Chiefs preseason game, the famous comeback with one of the greatest throws in NFL history to end that game. But it was actually the Bills game, the first preseason game where Declan Doyle and Al Harris called plays to finish. So they ended up scoring 10 points in the second half of that game. So you'll have to go back for yourself and see how Austin Reed looked in the second half. He was 6 of 7 for 66 yards and a quarterback rating of 106.6. Like I can't remember how much Bajent found his way into the second half of that game. Like I said, I have to go back and watch specifically of the splits in the second half for the Bears in that game. But he did call plays in that preseason. For those of you Ravens fans that are tuned in trying to find out about Declan Doyle, go watch the second half of Bears Bills preseason game number 1 if you're a real sicko.
Well, and Ravens fans, just, you don't have to watch every day, but hit the subscribe button while you're here. We're growing this podcast, going global here. We will talk about your guy, and you just hit the subscribe button because we're going to be in the Super Bowl together in a couple of years. We're 105,025. Maybe you guys can pump us up to 105.48 here. So, as we do here, this is why you subscribe. This is why you turn your notifications on, because when news breaks, we are going to be here, even if it's on a Friday after everybody, closed it down in dry January and jumped ahead to February because it's the end of the month. I thought I did a great job navigating a coloring situation here, Greg. We were delayed 3 minutes for that. But, Bears shows 5 days a week during the off season, 13 shows during the season, and CHGO Sports, we're covering the Cubs, the White Sox, the Bulls, the Blackhawks. So thank you. If you are not a subscriber, it's free. Subscribing is good. Notifications on, so because you might not be following Twitter like everybody else is here in the business, and you'll get the notification that a show is happening. What's going on? CHGO's Live. Oh, the Bears are looking to replace Declan Doyle, Eric Bieniemy, and Ian Cunningham. Do you think anybody else is going out the door before we go out the door here, Gregory? You worried about anybody else? And by the way, someone put in the chat earlier that you're doing a terrible job of talking terrible about the Bears coaches. That was your job this offseason. You said you would do it.
I took a early victory lap with Adam Rank yesterday on his show because I thought I had done the deed as the iceberg drops in 10 CHGO YouTube memberships. We appreciate you, Iceberg. It's very nice of you. But yeah, I have failed you. I have failed each and every one of you. I tried to do my smear campaign on Twitter about these coaches to keep them in Chicago, and it simply did not work. And the power of Ben Johnson and the reputation that these coaches are getting around the league is superseding my efforts, and they've worked in the past. It worked when I did the smear campaign on Luke Getsy. Nobody wanted him.
You did a phenomenal job with Getsy. And I thought that I liked Getsy.
But it seems to not be working with these coaches. So I don't know what the science behind all this is. But
apparently with all due respect to Luke, these hires might be honest. When you have a year where you win 11 games, 12 with the playoffs, win a playoff game, people start to take notice. What's going on over there in Chicago? And I'm sure everybody, hey, that team was at midfield in overtime on the way to going to the NFC Championship game. That's a pretty quick turnaround. Someone's doing something right over there. Let's go plug them in.
But it also just goes to show you how important the quarterback position is, and getting it right. It saves jobs. It elevates people's jobs. And when you get the quarterback wrong, like the general manager in Minnesota, you get fired. You get the quarterback wrong in Chicago a few years ago. Ryan Pace and Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy get shown the door, right?
Yep.
If you have all this great things happen in Detroit last year, then Ben Johnson gets a head coaching job. Tanner Engstrom gets a job in New York. John Morton gets elevated to OC. When things don't work out, then you get shown the door. So, this is a results-driven business, and the Bears put up big-time results. And, the cause and effect of that is, people are going to get job advancement here out of Chicago. It's probably early. I mean, not only all this feels early, but the Bears were a year early. So, while normally you don't see the coaching tree start to branch off when you have a great young head coach like Ben Johnson this quickly, it's also fairly unprecedented, the kind of turnaround the Bears had from 5 wins to 11, including one in the playoffs, 12, and an NFC North championship. So you go as the quarterback goes in this league.
Well, hit the like button for Ben on building an all-star staff in his first year, 5-star staff as it was called. I'll say it one more time. And, you can hit the like button at the same time, signaling your belief that Ben Johnson will be able to find replacements because he's Ben Johnson. He is Ben God. They will be building the statue for him at some point. He'll be sitting there right next to George Halas. and Walter Payton at the new Soldier Field at South McCormick Place, like Hogue detailed on our regular Friday show earlier today. You got to believe in Ben right now that he's going to go find his dudes, and he'll use his contacts, and he's a smart guy, and he'll replace his guys. And, the best thing about this, too, I think everybody should root for people to be upwardly mobile in life. That's what Ben did, and that's what's happening. So, the Ben Johnson coaching tree, who knows? At some point, maybe it'll be the most massive coaching tree across the NFL. Well, they'll look at him like, the Shanahan tree and the McVay tree and the Johnson tree, and it'll be sprouting all over the NFL. He's certainly off to a hell of a start here. But thank you to everybody for popping in here on a Friday late, for a offensive coordinator assistant, in essence, leaving out the door. The passion of Bears fans is real on January the 30th. We will be at the Super Bowl all next week. So live shows every day at our normal time, 1:00. Huge guests coming on. We got Bears players. We've got NFL gurus. We'll have everything for you. I don't want to, over promote right now who's coming on, because you never know what happens during the week. But our lineup is pretty damn stacked already. So be with us all next week, which is why you should hit the subscribe button on the way out here. And any other final thoughts here, Greggy?
No. And if Al Harris takes a job here later tonight, I'm going to punch someone in the face.
Anybody in mind? Is that for me, or is there somebody else in the region that you won't travel for?
Maybe Iceberg, somebody. But
you're mad at Iceberg?
We're leaving for.
Whoa. Don't get mad at Iceberg. You just gifted 10 memberships.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? I'm trying to be with my family for the rest of the night. We're leaving for San Francisco on Sunday. It's my mom's. This is one thing I did forget. So maybe this is silver
tomorrow, right?
Of having a second show, is I forgot to shout out my beautiful mother. 75 years old tomorrow. Happy birthday to my mom. We're going to dinner with her before we leave for San Francisco for a week. So if the Bears wouldn't mind letting me get to the rest, I got to pack. Jenny's threatening me that if I don't get the car washed before I leave, she's going to kill me. I got Night at the Museum 1 and 2 to watch with Addie, trying to introduce her to the next level of movies, get her off some of the cartoon movies. But I got stuff to do around here. So if the Bears wouldn't mind leaving me alone for the next 2 days, I'd appreciate it.
Well, we'll see. No promises, buddy. So stay ready. Say hi to Addie. Say hi to Barb.
Before we head out, we have a super chat here.
Yeah, Isaac Man, $2 super chat says, any thoughts on the increase in salary cap, $301 million? We did touch on this at the end of our first show here earlier today, where we went through a lot of different things. But overall, not a surprise. The salary cap continues to increase. The NFL and the business is good. And so you look at the salary increase over the last 15 years. But it is a good thing for the Bears, because as we know, salary cap is pretty tight, and the Bears are certainly going to have to make some maneuvers to try to get more, room to work with in that salary cap regard. But certainly a good thing for the Bears.
They were about $9 million over the cap going into 2026. This adds a little over $20 million in cap space. So now they're under the cap. They have flexibility. That's before cuts and things of that nature.
It means they're getting Max Crosby and 3 other players to help, even a wide receiver to complement him. Well, look, more money's always good. I would expect a very interesting offseason as far as the player movement goes. It is wildly unpredictable because we don't know what Ben really thinks about guys. We know that he was super positive about everybody during the season, but that's what you have to be. As far as Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, DJ Moore, Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson, maybe they'll all be back, and maybe none of them will be back. I have no idea. I think there's going to be some movement here. So we'll see. Which is why you want to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, because when anything does happen, we'll be talking about it. Motor Music, Michael, we miss you. Thanks for the emergency podcast. It was unnecessary. It is our job, but thank you for saying thank you.
Some of us are working, and other of us are staring at boats. Look at some boats.
Yeah, well, I was deep into a great nap, and I'm hearing my phone buzzing, and I look at him like, oh no.
Come on, we were off air for like 30 minutes. You fell asleep that fast?
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I needed it, buddy. But look at me. I'm like fresh as a daisy, ready to go. I got kid duties tonight. I got to figure out what to do.
Well,
later.
I knew when you said we'd do a 15-minute show that was never going to happen.
Yeah, so it's 34 minutes. Okay, we'll go. Declan Doyle's gone. Thank you, Declan Doyle. You did a great job here. You helped Caleb. You helped Ben. Good luck in Baltimore. We'll see you in the Super Bowl. Bears fans, we'll see you Monday from San Francisco. Unless something else happens, have a great rest of your Friday.
We all silly like the mayor.